The comments. Good. The meeting does not afford councillors and council officers protection for comments made during meetings which are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. I would now like to introduce the council officers who are present in this council meeting. Mr. Bradley Thomas, Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Rebecca Smith, Manager Governance and Risk, Ms. Ania Goose, Acting Manager ICT, and Mr. Rance Salan from the Planning Department. Mr. Thomas, do we have any apologies for tonight's meeting?
No, councillors. Mayor, just like to acknowledge that Mr. Bruce Lucas, Director of Infrastructure and Delivery, is on annual leave, and Mr. Ben Grounds, who's in the acting role, is unwell today, and so therefore those two are apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Councillors, does anyone have a conflict of interest to declare? Officers that are present, I ask whether you have a conflict of interest in any items presented before council tonight. Agenda item 6, confirmation of previous meeting minutes. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us, and that is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 21st of March 2023, as previously circulated to councillors, be confirmed. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Henderson, and seconded Councillor Bray. Thank you. Councillor Henderson, you want to speak to the motion? Yeah. Councillor Bray? No. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? That being the case, I put the motion to the vote. Please raise your hands, all those in favour. That's Councillors Dryly, Halliday, Bray, Henderson, Simpson and Hewitt, with Hood abstaining. Declare that the motion is passed. Agenda item 7, items of urgent business. Are there any items of urgent business not included on the agenda? It is not. Good. Agenda item 8 is the presentation of councillor reports. I will commence with my report. Councillors, in this report, I will touch on community events, advocacy to the state government, budgetary reality, and again, an ongoing fight. The past month has featured a number of prominent community events, including Clunes Booktown and Cresfest. Both of these events were very well attended and a credit to the hard-working organisers and their army of volunteers. The events also demonstrate council's ongoing support of the community and in their own way are a celebration of our diversity and the acknowledgement of significant and valuable contributions by community members. Excuse me. In recent days, I have written to a number of state government ministers on behalf of council. In our submission to Gabriel Williams MP, the Minister for Ambulance Services, we are seeking a review to expand Creswick's ambulance operations to 24/7, noting that in this critically important part of the healthcare system, ambulance response times in Hepburn Shire are significantly behind the state average, 19 minutes compared to 13. Such an upgrade in the west of the Shire would complement the new ambulance station to be created in Trentham in the east of the Shire later this year. In our submission to Colin Brooks MP, the Minister for Housing, we are calling for the formation of a social and affordable housing compact. Such a partnership between the state and local governments was originally called for by the state government way back in November 2020. The compact would assist in addressing the crisis in housing and to ameliorate the significant issues faced by local governments. In our submission to Jacinta Allen MP, the Minister for Commonwealth Games Delivery, we have continued our advocacy for additional funding required to complete the Creswick Trails project, which will be the site of the mountain bike events in the Commonwealth Games. Efforts to lobby the state government for additional much-needed funding to support our program to repair flood-damaged roads are continuing. On the subject of capital works, it is very pleasing to note that in the past months, we've seen the successful completion of the Hammond Park project in Creswick and the Sports Ground and Quarry Street Reserve Pavilion projects in Trentham. In all cases, these new and upgraded facilities will serve our communities well into the future. In the coming weeks, councillors will deliberate on the 23-24 budget. It should be of no surprise to anyone that escalating costs, the lingering effects of extreme weather events, and a tight state government budget will present challenges and constrain council's expenditure in the immediate future. The draft budget will be issued for public consultation and will be considered at the May and June meetings. Finally, council has made a strong and clear submission to the energy regulator, AEMO, in response to the VNI West consultation report. The key aspects of our submission highlighted the need for greater transparency, a call for serious consideration of undergrounding through specific areas, noted the threat to the UNESCO World Heritage bid for the Central Goldfields, called for reconsideration of the route, and noted the social and environmental factors are not being given sufficient weighting. In a timely intervention, two leading energy transmission industry experts recently described the project's current plans as, quote, a monumental mistake, and, quote, the biggest mistake in transmission planning in living memory. Their submission attacked the technical aspects and argued that the existing infrastructure and existing easements in Gippsland used instead of the proposed solution. The experts also noted with concern the prospect of escalating electricity bills, a tenfold increase in bushfire risk, the increased likelihoods of blackouts, and they too referenced the needless harm to communities. Council remains of the view that this project does not have the necessary social licence with which to proceed. Council will continue to advocate strongly on behalf of our community for a better outcome. That is my report. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. And as you've already indicated, March continued with a range of events across the Shire, and I attended these, including Booktown at Clunes and Cresfest in Creswick. I just want to make the point that all of these events add to the vibrancy of the Shire, providing a range of entertaining and stimulating experiences for us as residents, as well as attracting visitors to the Shire. And it's not just about visitor economics, it's also about providing opportunities for residents to be open to innovative ideas and experiences for us as residents. During the Easter break, I travelled with family down to Portland, and I find that since becoming a councillor, it's always interesting to see how other small rural shires manage. It has a long Indigenous street. In fact, one of its pubs has the distinction of being the longest continuously licensed hotel in Victoria. I took the opportunity to visit Budjim Bim, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, evidence of ancient Gunditjmara aquaculture, and to see firsthand how their ancestors manipulated their natural environment to ensure plentiful food supplies, and to see how the current Gunditjmara owners are working to re-establish aquaculture at Chayrak, also known as Lake Condah. For me, it showed how the UNESCO World Heritage bid listing has helped the process and gives us in Hepburn some idea of the benefits that may flow if the Central Goldfields World Heritage bid is successful. Portland also has the only seal breeding colony and gannet breeding colony on mainland Australia. And combined with the management of its Indigenous and settlement history, is it a positive example of managing visitation with sustainability, something that's a challenge for us here in Hepburn. Of interest, it also had modern health facilities and a broad range of supported accommodation options, something which we in Hepburn are still working towards. They have several wind farms, which again led to the question of how to store and transmit renewable energy, and drawing attention to the two projects proposed for our area, the Western Renewables Link and VNI West. Go into it, councillors, because Councillor Hood has already indicated and referenced the two energy experts saying that the Western Victorian major transmission projects were a monumental mistake. And it's notable that those experts raised many of the issues that residents and councils have identified previously. I just want to make note here that John Egan, a resident of Eganstown and a descendant of John Egan, the early colonist and the first to discover gold in the area, passed away recently. It led me, as has since Easter, a great deal of council and officers' time has been taken up responding to community concerns about the 3 planning applications that will come before us tonight. And it's the link with John Egan's passing was a consideration of what our historical heritage has been. I note with interest that when the Avenue of Honour was first planted, Dalesford Avenue of Honour was first planted in 1918, that the Honourable Don McLeod, who happened to be the Dalesford member of the Legislative Assembly from 1900 to 1923, said that the planting of an avenue of trees is one of the most beautiful ways in which we can perpetuate the memory of our noble heroes. The tree is perhaps one of the closest symbols of immortality that human resources can employ. Certainly that quote resonates, I think, in 2023. As I said, councillors and officers have spent a great deal of time recently taking note of the concerns of the community and working to deliver what are the best outcomes that are permitted by the state planning regulations and our local laws. And just using the BNI, the changes to the Western Renewable Link, to John Egan's example, and to those in the community, I want to encourage everybody in the community that when you have concerns or issues, then please talk to your local councils. Don't just or post on Facebook. All of us are willing to listen. It doesn't mean agreement, but we will take note. But we can't take note if we actually don't know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Mayor. This month I attended Booktown, attended and spoke at the flag raising ceremony for Transworth Day of Remembrance and attended the Clunes listening post. Booktown was a very successful event and was very well attended, and the weather was kind, thankfully. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Booktown was a very successful event and was very well attended, and the weather was kind. I'd like to commend the organisers and all the volunteers on their great achievement. It was good to see Booktown return to the pre-COVID experience. The flag raising for Trans Day of Remembrance was attended by a small group, and the heartfelt speeches reiterated our commitment to inclusion and our zero tolerance for homophobic hate speech or violence. First Clunes listening post was well attended and was a great opportunity for the residents to raise questions and provide feedback. It has been a very busy month as far as council briefings, community feedback and investigation prior to tonight's meeting goes. So thankfully there wasn't any more other events to attend. I don't know that I would have fit them in, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Matt. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have already said, but some things need to be. Some things need to be. I continue, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I will remind the gallery that you're not to interject while people are speaking. We We cannot influence the acoustics in this room, unfortunately. We don't have any other equipment. We'll do our best to speak up. But I'm not taking questions. Councillor Henderson, you have the floor.
Okay, so some of the things have already been repeated, but some things need repeating. And this month has indeed shown the diversity of our jobs as councillors. We cannot forget the ongoing fight that our farmers are faced with in tackling the overhead power line issue. They have been resolute and steadfast in their fight to save one of Victoria's and indeed Australia's important food producing areas. Council must continue anything in our power to continue our support. This month, Clunes and Creswick saw a huge influx of visitors to Booktown in Clunes and Cresfest in Creswick. I attended the opening of both events and they were a great success this year. There was also plenty of activities, not just for visitors, but for locals to attend and indeed participate. Along with Councillor Dryley, I attended a tour of the Creswick Timber Training Centre to look at possible options for a community group to move to the site. Although I've had a great deal to do with the centre, it's eye-opening to see the importance of this facility, not only to Creswick prosperity, but to the contribution made to the timber processing industry throughout Australia. Almost all aspects of training are carried out, including harvesting and milling timber, the drying and moulding of timber that we see in construction and timber architectural features. There's only one of its kind in Australia. At the request of a resident, Councillor Halliday and myself inspected some roadworks around Smeaton with an engineer, a council engineer, as I say. Some of the work looked at was, in my view, substandard. We need to get better, seeing that contractors carry out works that will be serviceable into the future. One section of road was constructed by Hepburn Shire road crews, and it was a stark contrast, and one could only be proud of work. Particularly in a rural shire such as ours, proper construction of roads is essential, and it's a core business of council. On the issue of engineering, I noted today as I drove past that some of the vegetation and gravel is finally being cleared from Creswick Creek. I've also been involved in discussions with a group of community members who are involved in producing a disaster recovery plan and assisting in gathering of information as to what is needed into future regarding flooding and fire. Committee's also been established in Creswick to raise funding shortfall for the Creswick Hospital, and this group will be out actively aiming to reach a target of $150,000. Work is nearly completed, we'll say completed, at Hammond Park on the cycling play area. That was the old footy ground. The works will be the trailhead for Creswick Trails project that is already underway. Creswick Town Hall works are also progressing well, and the important work of protecting this valuable asset from damage due to water getting in and destroying the structure cannot be understated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Dryley, your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I will attempt to speak up, but firstly, I'd like to just celebrate the success of the second coming of Cresfest and the inaugural Light Up Creswick project, which took place earlier this month. It was a joy to see so many locals and visitors participating in the festival, enjoying the various international and local music, dance, arts, performances, the parade and workshops, as well as discovering the walking trails, the Lindsay Art Trail and the Creswick Heritage Walks. The Light Up Creswick project illuminated trees and buildings across our town for the duration of the festival and beyond, thanks to the generous funding provided by the Community Bank Creswick. I want to thank organisers and the hundreds of local volunteers who made this event a success, and I'm proud to be part of community and council that values creativity, ingenuity and participation. I was pleased to be able to help launch the Light Up Creswick project, MC a couple of events and just soak up the overwhelmingly positive and vibrant atmosphere. Also want to celebrate the success of Clunes Booktown, as Councillor Halliday's mentioned. I was pleased to be able to attend the launch event this year, and it was a pleasure to see the program of conversations with writers and storytellers, renowned authors, poets and wordsmiths. I want to thank the organisers of the festival for providing such an enriching experience for our community. I also want to mention the community listening posts, which have returned this year. I attended the Clunes listening post this month, where residents had an opportunity to have a chat about ideas and concerns with councillors and council staff from different teams. It was a great way to engage with our community. I'm grateful for the opportunity to have a conversation with those who attended. In addition, I participated in a councillor Creswick structure planning workshop, where we discussed the future of our town and how to shape it in a sustainable, inclusive way. I look forward to working with our community on this important project. Continuing. I'm also attended a meeting at the launch of Creswick Health's upgrade appeal to help raise $150,000 to improve facilities at Creswick Hospital and Creswick Aged Care. And as Don's mentioned, Councillor Henderson's mentioned, there's community committees been formed to help initially to raise $30,000 by the end of June. As a councillor, it's essential to understand the needs and aspirations of our community, and I also took part in the Timber Training Centre tour with the Men's Friendship Shed group this month. It was a great opportunity to learn about the extensive local training facility and to meet with the local community members, both men and women, to discuss possible future directions and locations for the Friendship Shed group. Lastly, it was pleasing to also to see the flood mitigations on the way here today in the Creswick Creek. And I'd also like to thank the tireless efforts of community members who continue to be actively engaged in opposing the route of AEMO and AusNet's ill-considered and unsustainable power lines proposal. I'm also looking forward to the imminent completion of Hammond Park Trailhead as part of the Creswick Trails project. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mayor, please see my report that I've tabled and will be in the minutes tomorrow.
Thank you, Councillor Simpson. Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mayor Hood. It was a quick month that we had Easter in the middle. I have a few items to report on. I was happy to celebrate the opening of the Daylesford Neighbourhood House as the new manager of the R, which is the basketball and other sports stadium in Smith Street. So congratulations to them. Also to note that the Daylesford Neighbourhood Centre was also the driver of the recent shower and washing facilities for homeless people that has just now been installed. And it was great to see that that's been picked up, that story's been picked up by ABC National News and promoted as a possible solution for other shires. So a good example of Hepburn and Hepburn Shire working in partnership with other agencies and leading the way on those solutions for homelessness. Was just recently part of a Daylesford and Macedon Ranges tourism management plan, destination plan workshop, looking at ways to enhance and attract the visitor experience in our shire. But the big project that's coming up that I was working with Councillor Leslie Hewitt and other consultants on is the Birchwood Structure Plan workshop. And this was meeting with a team of consultants who will be investigating our new structure plans in our planning scheme for Daylesford, Hepburn Springs and other towns in the Shire. Councillor Hewitt and I identified the important considerations that we need to think about for protecting and enhancing our neighbourhood character, for things like transport connections, zoning, bushfire protection, biodiversity, architecture and urban planning. And we are opening this up for the community to have feedback and input into this process. So I'd strongly encourage members of the community to look out for the structure planning engagement sessions that we'll be running. This is a great opportunity, as Councillor Hewitt has said, that there's a lot of interest in our community about planning matters, about how we protect the natural feel and history of our beautiful towns and region. And this is a great way for community to get involved and have some impact into those decisions for the future.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillors, the recommendation before us is that council receives and notes the mayor's and councillors' reports. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Hewitt, seconded Councillor Henderson. Would either of you like to speak to the motion? That being the case, I put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. Declare that that motion is adopted, is passed unanimously. 8.3 on the agenda is the Chief Executive's report. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Report is included in the agenda. It's really pleasing to listen to councillors' presentations and just how diverse the workload and the projects that we're involved in, even in a short 4-week period. Particularly a couple that I would really like to highlight, and that being the opening of the Trenton Recreation Pavilion, providing the keys to the football and netball club with about half an hour to go so they could actually play their round 1 on Saturday, and also Hammond Park, which we hope will have absolutely finalised and open to the community probably next week, fingers crossed. But great example of working in partnership with community, state government, and particularly the benefits that we have received after a couple of tough years, but significant state government grant funding in relation to COVID. Those two projects alone are worth over $6 million worth of investment into our communities. And very excited about the future Hepburn project and our strategic planning project. This is absolutely game-changing for our communities, is a once-in-a-generation project and really ties nicely in with our council plan. Lots happening across the entire organisation, and they were just a couple of my quick highlights. Mayor and councillors, there's a recommendation in the agenda that council receives and notes the Chief Executive Officer's report for April 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'm in search of a motion, please, councillors. Councillor Hewitt, seconded Councillor Dryling. Either of you wish to speak? That being the case, put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And that is carried unanimously. Agenda item 9 is public participation time. 9.1 is petitions. I can report that no petitions have been received for tonight's meeting. 9.2 is questions from members of the community. I can report that no questions have been received for this meeting. 9.3 is requests to address council. Before we move to that point, for the sake of clarity, I will make 7 points. As always, and as indicated before, tonight's meeting is conducted in accordance with council's governance rules. Point 2, I chair this meeting in accordance with the governance rules and have no discretion to vary from them. Point 3, a process was introduced late last year, creating the opportunity for residents to be heard on planning matters at a briefing session rather than at a council meeting. This less formal setting provides greater, This less formal setting provides greater scope for interaction and has worked well. Point 4, as a result of that change, speakers wishing to address a formal council meeting cannot speak on planning items on tonight's agenda. Point 5, I can reassure everyone present and watching that councillors receive a significant amount of material on planning matters, some of which is provided by objectors. Point 6, all material is taken into consideration by councillors in their decision-making. The Local Government Act obligates councillors to make evidence-based, responsible decisions on behalf of the entire Shire-wide community. And point 7, finally, any assertions that the new process for hearing objections may limit the opportunity for residents to voice their concerns are not based in fact. I now invite Mr. Gary Lawrence to address council. Welcome, Gary.
Councillors, I wish to acknowledge we're meeting on Jarrah country today. I ask councillors to consider the following matter in all their dealings with the land, waterways and environment of Hepburn Shire. We've got heritage protection for such things as miners' cottages, grand houses, European gardens, bluestone gutters, picket fences, We treasure rustic streetscapes and even gold sites amongst the scarred and damaged landscape. Yet the ancient Indigenous trees, hundreds of years old, the remnant natural landscape, freshwater springs, ceremonial and significant mountains, ridges and waterway corridors have little or no binding cultural heritage protection, as exampled by Lulgambuk, Mount Franklin, which is sadly diminished by the conflicting development. I met with respected elder Uncle Rick Nelson last week after hearing about the threat to one of these ancient trees, and he agreed that I should bring this item, which is quite significant to the Jara. I've thought about this all week. I don't think I can undo it, but I want you to know that this signifies something very special. Right. I ask, and we should all ask, the councillors take every possible action to address this imbalance of heritage and respect for heritage, to stand up and protect the remnant cultural heritage of First Nations people within the Hepburn Shire, including those ancient trees that still stand as witness to so much destruction and trauma. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. We much appreciate your comments. Councillor Halliday, you have a question.
I was curious to know what was in the package, even if you didn't want to open it. Sorry, I was wondering if we could know what was in the package, even if you didn't want to open it.
We go to this property in the city. The recorded read the star, the night star, the space between the stars. Greater people, according to their story, involved with gathers on that hill, as well, police, Indigenous trees. There, that really obviously would be conflict.
You.
Thank you again, Gary. I now invite Ms Deborah Semple to address council regarding the history and heritage of trees within Hepburn Shire. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you. Greetings to everybody. Just to say, I'm not sure that was the topic, so I was a bit confused as to what I could and couldn't speak to. So I have just condensed it into a very simple, well, statement, I suppose, or two about what I appreciate about the Shire. I didn't want to step over the line.
Fine.
Then I have a poem that I thought I'd read, which just is a bit light in comparison to all the heavy paperwork that's been dealt with, which I understand has been perhaps overwhelming, but I think all the work's been done. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to speak simply to the beauty of our town and Shire. Our town and Shire are beautiful and they are unique. We are set in a magnificent natural environment with layers of history. My particular love is the magnificent trees which grace, which grace our horizons, be they original trees from pre-colonial days or intentional collections planted by immigrants seeing the value of their stock. So I simply wish to express gratitude to those ancestors who planted today's giants for us all to enjoy. I wish to honour their intentions by looking after and enjoying every single one of these trees. I wish to alert all who are unaware of how quickly they can disappear, remind everyone of their reliable, humble, giving strength. And this is the substance of what I wish to say on behalf of myself and others. And then I'll just read you this poem, if I've still got a few minutes, which I wrote a few years ago, after being here for some years too. And I called it Beware. So watch out, our water, our land, our flowers and trees, our birds, our insects, our wildlife, our bees are fast disappearing while we're on our knees, subservient to a sea of excuses, prettied on platters. Oh, we've been primed and puffed up, not prepared for the fall. We've forgotten to challenge, we don't have the gall. She'll be right, mate, we cheer as we raise our glasses, complain about others while we sit on our... Like the frog in the pot, we don't care till we're hot. Then too late, we realise more time we have not. So that's what I'd like to say today. So thank you for all your work and yeah. All right.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you again to both speakers. We now move to agenda item 10.1, which is the PLN 22/0263, the stage subdivision of land and development of 31 townhouses at 17 Smith Street, Dalesford. Alan, you will introduce this report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. The proposal is for the construction of 31 dwellings and subsequent subdivision of each lot within the neighbourhood residential zone, Schedule 1. The proposed development forms part of the Middleton Fields project at the eastern entry to Dalesford. This application has undergone public notice and 5 objections have been received to date. This matter is being reported to council as the cost of the development exceeds $2 million and it has received more than 5 objectors. This is an architecturally designed project and townhouses will achieve an energy rating of 7.5. Pretty good. The dwellings will be 2-storey and there is a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom dwellings. The dwellings and further subdivisions will take place on super lots as previously approved by a multi-lot subdivision for 17 Smith Street. So this is really just filling in on the lots that have already, the big lots that have already been created. The key issues have included the reduction of 10 car parking spaces in the Eco Village, neighbourhood character, the provision of medium density development and building height. There is a very comprehensive report that goes through and presents the position of officers in accordance with what's presented in the planning scheme. The proposed development provides an opportunity for a diverse housing product and for the provision of some affordable housing. No native vegetation is supposed to be removed, with the proposal being designed to incorporate existing trees on site within the development's open space areas. While the design of the subdivision and proposed lots does differ from what is typically seen in the surrounding areas, the site's position behind established built form on Smith Street and Midland Highway means the development will have little impact on both the established character of the area or on view lines between areas of significance. The recommendation is for a notice of decision to grant a planning permit subject to quite an exhaustive list of conditions that will now be discussed. Should be noted that an amended planning condition has been included to the recommendation to consider accessibility options for the eastern townhouses. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Salem. Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Hewitt.
Ellen, you made mention that there would be a reduction in the required number of parking spots, particularly at the end of at both ends of the Eco Village. Can you just some clarification on why officers are happy with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The 4 single bedroom dwellings without on-site parking are located at the block ends, 2 at each of the western and eastern ends. Parking spaces are located directly adjacent to the 2 dwellings at the eastern end and directly adjacent to one of the dwellings at the western end. The other dwellings at the western end would have approximately 15-metre walk to an on-street car park. Part of the reason why these units are designated to be affordable is because they don't have a space that has been set aside specifically for car parking, but there are some 36 odd on-street car parks that will be available.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson, you had a question?
Mr. Sallin, are the Middleton Fields design guidelines available for discussion to determine if they are appropriate for Daylesford?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, they can be made available, and I will make sure that they are forwarded on to the councillors if they haven't already had access to them.
Too late.
Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. You made mention of an amendment to include some accessibility into some of the units. The applicant does speak about ageing in place in this application, and I note that a lot of the dwellings have 2 stories. How is this achieved, the accessibility in these lots? And I think there was they've specified which lots were in particularly to be focused on with that accessibility.
Through the chair. In this stage, there have been some provisions that have been made as optional extras that future tenants can have installed within their home. Things like chair lifts for the stairwells. And they've also reconfigured some of the lower layer, the internal workings of the lower levels, so that there's less, so that it's easier for people to live on a single level and only visit the top level on selected occasions or once or twice a day. So there isn't that much opportunity within the first lot of housing because they are double storey. Subsequent stages, we've had further discussions with the developer and they intend to incorporate a lot more accessibility options because the future stages will be flatter and they will be single-storey dwellings.
Thank you.
Councillors, are there any further questions?
Got one.
Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you. Stand up. Mr. Sallin, you mentioned that the neighbourhood character was different to the other houses that are around Smith Street. But officers are satisfied that with the landscaping plans and the internal design, that area will develop its own particular neighbourhood character. I'm perhaps thinking of another area in Daylesford, Garibaldi Drive, where that probably many years ago had a similar kind of concern. Could you make any comment about why you think that will be satisfactory?
Through the chair, there's been a lot of emphasis placed around particularly the greenery and the location of the positioning of the dwellings. While the lot sizes are probably not, well, they're not commonly found in that area, there are larger allotments around the total perimeter of the development, which is more in keeping in character with what else is around. The design guidelines, yeah, they do pick out specific attributes that are common in the area and try and integrate them into some of the requirements for the design. And I would encourage the councillors to have a look through some of the attachments at the built form and what it looks like, and make their own determination as to whether they think that is a good design outcome, because there's quite a few photos in that, well, photo montages.
Councillors, are there any further questions? That being the case, we have a recommendation before us. And the officer's recommendation is that council, having complied with the relevant sections Planning and Environment Act 1987, issues a notice of decision to grant a planning permit in respect of application number PLN 22/0263 for the staged subdivision of land and development of 31 townhouses generally in accordance with the endorsed plans at 17 Smith Street, Dalesford, subject to the conditions outlined in the meeting agenda. And there are 54 conditions. I won't read them all out. That's the recommendation before us, councillors. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Henderson, you are moving.
Moving the officer's recommendation.
I'm in search of a seconder.
Councillor Henderson's moved the officer's recommendation. I'm happy to second that.
Thank you, councillor Bray.
Objection.
Sorry,
Considering the objection. Approved it.
the motion has been moved and seconded. The councillors will now debate it. There isn't any other further interaction with the gallery on this matter. That's the,
You are here. You are supposed to be. These are a stakeholder
I explained,
for them. They are not working for you. They are paying you people to take care of their assets, their culture, their everything in here.
we're doing, sir. I explained the governance rules before. Okay, that's enough. Councillor Henderson has the floor and will speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to be sure, Mayor, I'm sure you heard me, and that's what I have from the chair. So this particular project is not the ideal outcome that we would want. Sometimes we don't get what we want, and as a planning authority, which we are today, we have to take into account what our legal responsibilities are. And I'm satisfied myself that this development fits both the Hepburn Planning Scheme and complies with the Planning and Environment Act. So having established that, I think as councillors, we set out to get the best possible deal for the community. And whilst it mightn't be popular to say, I actually commend the developer for being prepared to sit down and listen to us on behalf of the community and indeed make some concessions. Those concessions of affordable housing and so on didn't need to be made. They have been made and offered. And I think often we don't get the outcome we particularly want or desire. We can't have a wish list, but we've achieved far more than I think we would have achieved just by bringing this before us and not going into that discussion and negotiation with the developer. I can't see any reason why we can't pass this. I take on board my colleague, Councillor Hewitt's comments about people making a community. When we set out on a development, we do a lot of things on faith. And often the people surprise us and they will build a community. If they have a desire, there's the whole project around there has the capacity to build community if people want to get involved. And I think community will get involved. They will create their own community within Dalesford, and they'll from there go out and become valuable citizens. We do have a housing shortage. We can't, on the one hand, go out bleating that we don't have enough houses and then refuse reasonable development to provide those houses. So I commend the resolution to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray is seconded. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Councillor Hood. I have heard many views on this development. I've listening to community. I've been looking in a lot of detail at developers' plans. And on balance, I see this as an experiment for Daylesford in how to provide more accommodation with some consideration for sustainability on a small footprint. And there are in this development a number of green spaces, communal gardens, compost areas and walking paths, and a design that tries to look at our rural way of living and encourage community connection. As Councillor Henderson says, it may not have been what the community may have preferred, but we are asked to look at the development proposal in front of us, and that is what we need to assess. I do note that there are less car parks provided than is probably required. However, I think that when you're looking at a small footprint, if you're weighing up the difference between space for a garden or space for a car, it may be preferable for a small lot to have green space and allow for car parking on the street, which is quite adequate. I would also like to have seen single-storey accessible dwellings in this development that meet the needs of our ageing population for ageing in place. And perhaps we will, as Mr. Salan suggests, that perhaps we will see that in the next super lot development. And I do think it is something the developers should take note of as a priority for this community. However, all on balance, I feel that this proposal will provide more accommodation options for our community. The design is grounded in natural materials, sustainable features, and these are things we want to encourage with future developments. So I'm supportive of this.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Would any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Simpson.
I'd like to speak against the motion. I think these blocks are too small, only suitable for rows of houses joined together. And the rows of two-storied houses are appropriate for the iconic skyline of Daylesford. These rows of two-storied houses will be viewed from the railway precinct, Raglan Street and the Midland Highway when visitors are entering Daylesford, an unattractive addition to Daylesford's skyline.
Councillor Hewitt.
Councillor Bray and Councillor Henderson have already outlined that indeed this application does meet our local planning guides and requirements and the state planning guidelines. The developer does not have, there's no obligation to include any sort of affordable or social housing currently. We've been consulting councillors, as you know, and developing an affordable housing strategy. One of the things that the community's been asking for is to include a range of housing that is affordable. It's my understanding that the 4 units are going to be for affordable housing, and they're going to be run by the Women's Property Initiative. Whilst there are concerns that I have around the wavering of parking and whether or not two-storey things are totally accessible, it's important that council do actually look at providing a range of housing options when we know that we have a serious issue in this shire for affordable housing. So whilst I do have some concerns, particularly about the parking, I think the fact that the developers to be commended for including the 4 affordable housing properties that they had no obligation to do.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Would any other councillor, councillor Dryling?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I too have been considering this proposal, and it's complex sort of history and journey to this point. And it's, as a couple of other councillors have mentioned, it's you never quite get what you want in these situations. It is the project that's put before us at this time. And something that I've learnt along the way is that progress is not made in huge jumps and leaps in council or in other situations often. But to celebrate some of the wins in this project is important. You know, I note that, you know, it's not the greenest project on earth, but there are aspects of sustainability and improvements in this development that are quite significant. You know, other councillors mentioned the issues of accessibility, but there are considerations in this project around accessibility, and the reduction in car spaces is a consideration in terms of how sustainable and how we can develop our communities around other modes of transport. And I think that is an important consideration. I have heard objectors, and I think that I have been quite impressed as well in terms of some of the compromises and the way that the developer has actually listened and come back to us on some of these issues. And on that basis, I think that there are, this is the project that's before us, and I'll be supporting this proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. Councillor Halliday.
Thank you, Mayor. So I also want to speak in support of the motion. I guess I'm probably going to be a little bit repetitive here, but I do agree with some of the previous comments around the fact that this is already an existing subdivision and we are just further subdividing within that. So there are certain aspects that we can no longer control, such as views. That decision was taken away from us previously. It was already decided to be developed. The other issue is around the fact that it does meet the planning scheme guidelines. So were we to flat out refuse the proposal, it's likely that we'd lose it in VCAT. I think the outcome that we have achieved has a lot of benefits because we've worked with the developer, rather than saying no and going to VCAT and not getting what we want. We've worked with the developer for a better outcome, and we have, as other councils have said, some great outcomes with the affordable housing, the 4 units, some green sustainable sort of options. There is a fantastic little community garden in the middle, and hopefully people will create a wonderful little community in that area, focused around that garden and sharing resources and so forth. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson, as the mover of the motion, do you wish to exercise your right of reply? Okay. Councillors, the motion before us is that Council, having complied with the relevant sections of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, issues a notice of decision to grant a planning permit in respect of application number PLN 22/0263 for the stage subdivision of land and development of 31 townhouses, generally in accordance with the endorsed plans at 17 Smith Street, Daylesford, subject to the 54 conditions outlined in the meeting agenda. I now put that motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That's Councillor Dryly, Councillor Halliday, Councillor Bray, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Hewitt and Councillor Hood. All those against, Councillor Simpson. Declare that the motion is passed. Agenda item 10.2. Staged multi-lot subdivision and associated works, creation of access to a road in a transport zone 2 and removal of vegetation at 4719 Midland Highway, Daylesford. Mr. Sallin, I believe you'll introduce this report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The application proposes a staged subdivision of 7 residential lots ranging from 1,500 square metres to 2,393 square metres, along with a super lot of 1.57 hectares intended to accommodate a future medium density eco village development like the one that was just considered. The land is zoned neighbourhood residential zone and 10 objections were received throughout the process. Access to the site is to be provided via a 16-metre tree-lined road onto Midland Highway. Each of these lots will contain a building envelope to ensure protection of the existing cedar trees within the subject site and ultimately within the new lots. The proposed residential lots are all large and will each easily accommodate a dwelling and provide the opportunity for well-developed outdoor spaces and new landscaping. It is proposed that the future development will ultimately facilitate the provision of high amenity residential development in accordance with our guidelines, which will include house designs being prepared by leading architects that reflect the style and character of Daylesford. The key issues have included the protection of the cedar trees lining the highway, location and treatment of the mine shafts that may be located within the development site, the provision of open space, and the manna gum tree that's on the adjoining lot. The estate's masterpiece will be the future medium density development, which will be subject to a further application. A landscape road and shared path will create a leafy spine between the future medium density development on the western side of the site and the large residential lots on the eastern side of the site. The recommendation is for a notice of decision to grant a planning permit, and that is to now be considered by the council.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. Councillors, questions? Councillor Bray.
Thank you, councillor Hood. I have a number of questions. I'm happy to ask them separately or I can ask them all at once. But first question I have is regarding the manna gum, as you said, is not on the property. There in the circulated agenda, there's a clause that states that a permit is required for removal of this manna gum. I would like some clarification, please. Is this manna gum proposed to be removed or protected in this application?
Through the chair, it's intended to be protected as part of this. I think that the particular sentence that you are referring to can probably be interpreted two different ways. It's certainly our intention to do whatever we can to particularly protect the root system, and there will be a tree protection zone put around that particular tree. But it is located on the adjoining property and there is no intention or application to have that removed.
Thank you.
Mr. Bray.
Thank you for that clarification. I also wanted to talk about the road access from Midland Highway, which proposes on the current plan to remove 2 cedrus trees, which are part of a long line of plantings that are probably 100 years old. Is there any ability to reduce that from 2 down at all or to minimise that in any way?
Through the chair. Yes, we've had extensive discussions with the developers to see what the feasibility of actually only having to remove 1 tree. And so we have drafted some new conditions that require only the removal of 1 of those trees to facilitate that access way, which should improve that setting and help maintain that line of magnificent trees.
Further to the trees, a question around what is the best mechanism for council, or what is a mechanism council can use to actually ensure those trees are protected in the future when those lots are sold to future owners? How can we ensure that they can still be protected? What are some of the options that might be before council?
Through the chair, do we have a considerable amount of time so I can expand on the various options? Unfortunately, the most definitive options do require changes to the planning scheme to incorporate them in there, either through a tree registry or to put an overlay over them to require them to be protected. Those particular mechanisms, however, take several years. So in the interim, the tree protect. There have been certain measures that have been put in place for this trees to protect them, particularly during construction. And there's still some ongoing discussions with regards to what more can be done in order to ensure that they are adequately protected going on into the future. But that won't form part of this. We're only doing what we're able to do at the moment in relation to putting conditions on there for tree protection zones.
Could that, one of those conditions be a section 173 agreement around building envelopes or things to that effect?
They are included in there in the draft conditions councillors have been provided with.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Simpson.
Yeah. So, Mr. Sullivan, what action has been taken to document the existence of an open air shaft on the block adjoining the proposed road reserve?
Through the chair. At this stage, we have placed conditions in the permit requiring some identification work to be done to determine what the nature of some of those openings are and to see if there is any subsidence within the top 5 metres of the subsoil that will reveal if there are actually any mine shafts that are still there, and there will be a requirement for those to be remediated appropriately.
So, yeah, so my second question is about the mining tunnels, which is probably similar through these blocks. So have they been documented in relation to this subdivision?
At this point, they have not been documented. There are some archival records and some sketches that council has been provided with. They've been passed on to the developers, and they do have that requirement as part of the permit to do some exploratory work to determine exact locations.
So my last question is about the brick drain, which is in the public open space on Raglan Street. Has this been documented in these plans? It has a 10 metre wide flood area into the public open space.
My understanding is that some of that land is it's not included in the encumbered public open space that is being returned to, provided to council as part of this application. There will be some further exploratory work done on that just to ascertain that any flooding or overland flows that result from that drain are being dealt with adequately.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. Councillor Bray.
Right, thanks. I have another question. As Councillor Simpson mentioned, there's some public open space being allocated to council around a bit more than 5% of public space open land that is not encumbered, meaning that it's not part of a drainage system, it's not susceptible to flooding. This could be used for parks, walkways, cycle tracks, whatever council chooses to do with it. According to the map, it seems to form a spine going down the middle, and it follows a natural drainage line, and it would be accessible to both Raglan Street properties and the Midland Highway properties. I suppose my question is around the potential to protect the cedar trees along the Midland Highway, and whether there's any potential for council to, in addition to that other open space, be able to be transferred that land to create a reserve to protect into the future those really significant historic trees. And if so, what would the mechanism be to achieve that?
That's okay, Mayor, through you. So the plans in front of council tonight don't have inclusion of that. There's certainly stronger protections around the cedar trees. So if council was to approve the permit tonight, the section 173 agreement would be placed on there, and there would be much stronger protection upon those cedar trees effectively tonight. If council was of a mind to continue to work with the developer into the future, we can obviously have continued conversations, but for tonight, the part of the development is effectively conditioning and improving and putting section 173 so those trees have protection going forward. And council could add a note to the conditions that would then, I suppose, make officers work with the developer in terms of pros and cons of any other work around the open space. I think it's really important to note with the open space plan, there's obviously indicative parts are part of the plan, but we need to work with the developer in terms of this little bit, that little bit, how does it work with the mines and the tunnels, and then the handover post-construction as well. So that certainly happens down the line following construction.
Councillor Henderson.
Yes. Mayor, anyone wants to answer, but is it possible to have discussions about this tree that's being removed? Assuming that we do pass it, we've got a very significant tree. In this shire in the past, we've been able to retain the tree and not just put it into wood chips. We've been able to send that or get that timber sent off, to be milled up and to be used in the development. And a good example of that is the Creswick Library, where we've got a sempervirens in there that was dying, and we've cut the timber up and used it in the library. Over at Victoria Park, we used some Douglas firs that had to be removed as part of that development. Is it possible to talk to the developer about using some of this timber somewhere in the development, perhaps with some sort of signage to say that this tree was removed and what its significance was?
Happy to take that one. Certainly, councillors, that's certainly possible. So don't need that as part of a planning condition. It's just how we try and work with developers, and whether they're on our projects or into the future. If there's a way of recycling materials and reusing them, certainly happy to encourage that. So I can take that on as a action. I don't need that as a planning permit condition or anything.
Thank you.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, Councillor Bray might have already asked part of this question, but could the road reserve go between the cedar trees instead of removing the cedar tree? I'm addressing Alan.
Through you, Mayor,
Yes,
happy to
Mr.
answer that
Thomas.
one.
Yeah.
It really is answering the previous question around, it is possible, right, as part of the planning permit, and would need requirements between council and the developer to work through any of those changes around the road reserve where the controls were. What we're also trying to do in, I suppose, the part around reducing only to the one removal, obviously, if through the development, it doesn't need to be that removal of the tree. The developer, of course, doesn't have to remove it, but that's certainly the preferred option. But based on the covenant evidence that we've got at the moment and working with the authority, remembering that a Department of Transport road, their recommendation at the moment is the removal of two. We've worked with the developer and think we can do it with one, and we'll continue to have those discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Bray.
Sorry, it's a question around the cultural heritage, Aboriginal cultural heritage on this site. I understand that a cultural heritage management plan was not required to be done on this site, even though we probably as locals know it does have significance to the Jara people. Firstly, could you explain why that is not being done? And also, could we understand what other mechanisms or what other things we could do to connect the Jara people to this development so that their history, their culture and their connection to this place is somehow respected and acknowledged?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I will take part of that on notice because I'm not aware of what the history is with the Cultural Heritage Management Plan. There are criteria that have to be met before council can require one. In the event that those criteria aren't met, then council doesn't require one, which was the case here. I haven't been through that particular exercise, so I can't tell you what aspects didn't align. I will take that on notice and
Through you, Mayor, I can add to that in terms of obviously the planning component. What we can do, councillors, and will do, given the substantive development that this is, we have a fantastic relationship with Jara people in terms of through our reconciliation work. I'll certainly put the developer in contact with them to ensure that if there's any further relationships, the type of work, care on country through the development can be undertaken. So once again, not a requirement or needed in the planning permit, but can take that out as a really positive step.
Thank you. I do appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr Thomas. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Simpson.
One last question, Mr. Sallen. Has the mine shaft in the southwest corner of this development been documented?
through the chair, as previously mentioned, we do have some, we have been provided with some materials that indicate that there is a mine shaft there, hasn't been well documented, and we would hope that as a result of the investigative work that I believe is going on this week, that we'll know a lot more about that and be able to give council some more information on it.
Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillors, the officer's recommendation before us is that council, having complied with the relevant sections of the Planning Environment Act 1987, issues a notice of decision to issue a planning permit in respect of application number PLN 22/0176 for a staged multi-lot subdivision and associated works and roadworks, subdivision of land adjacent to Transport Zone 2, creation of access to a road in a Transport Zone 2, and removal of vegetation in accordance with the endorsed plans at 4719 Midland Highway, Daylesford, subject to the conditions outlined in the meeting agenda. And there are 89 conditions listed in the papers before us. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Bray, you're moving the officer's recommendation?
No, councillor, but I'm not moving the officer's recommendation, but I have a motion that I would like to put that I think is going to be put up on the screen. It's also quite long and lengthy and I won't read it out, but the key points in this are to make some slight changes and amendments to what is in the agenda. I will just highlight a couple of key points. In clause 1A, that the provision of building envelopes on all large lots, the building envelopes must be sized and located to protect the tree protection zones of the cedar trees along the Midland Highway and the Eucalyptus viminalis, which is the Manigum tree 4, per the Xylem Arboricultural Report located on 4723 Midland Highway to the immediate north of the site. B, that tree protection zones as determined by an arboricultural assessment for the cedar trees along the Midland Highway and the Eucalyptus viminalis, tree 4 per Xylem Arboricultural Report, located on the Midland Highway, lot 3, etc., to the immediate north of the site. The tree protection zones must be determined by a qualified arboriculturalist. The arboricultural assessment must be submitted to and approved by the responsible authority. 3, the protection measures identified in the Xylem report to protect the mature Eucalyptus viminalis must be included. The plan must also include measures to ensure the surrounding land close to the tree is clear from infrastructure, allows for natural limbfall and regeneration, and includes planting and associated indigenous plant species. D, that modification to the access from Midland Highway, this must be included in the plans, modification to the access from Midland Highway that ensures the retention of all but one cedar tree. There are more changes that I would like to highlight. Most of the rest of the clauses are as is in the agenda. I would also like to highlight that obligations and agreements, the agreement must provide for building envelopes on all large lots to protect the existing cedar trees. B, inclusion and implementation of the Middleton Field design guidelines for the larger lots. C, that there must be no further subdivision of the proposed large lots adjoining Midland Highway. And I would also like to make note of a clause that will be added after the conditions. And that is that council requests officers to seek further discussion with the applicant regarding the future ownership of the land containing the cedar trees along the parcel boundary with Midland Highway.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Do I have a seconder to that motion, councillors? Councillor Halliday? Councillor Bray, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you, councillor Hood. Look, this is a significant development on the entrance to Dalesford and a historic and iconic property. It has great meaning for local people, Indigenous people, and all visitors to this area. And we're aware of the many important features on the site, such as the creek drainage line that runs through to Bun Creek and Spring Creek. And we want to be able to protect the waterway and also to establish a wetlands to improve the quality of water downstream and to protect our mineral springs. We're aware of the historic and significant row of 100-year-old cedar trees that form the entrance to town. And if cared for, they may be able to live for another 200 years. Their beauty and grandeur need to be protected and preserved. We're aware of historic mine tunnels, which also need to be identified and protected and made safe. This property must also address the needs of the community for housing and respond to our neighbourhood character, and it needs to provide safe, connective road, cycle and walking access. What we've found as a councillor group, I'm speaking for myself now, but it's been a very productive exercise for planners, developers and the community to work together on this big project. We've heard input from our expert planners, we've heard input from our community, we've had input from the developers, and we've brought it all together to create this master plan, and this is one section of that master plan. And I think what we have achieved here is a good outcome to address the strong concerns of the community, to protect our trees and waterways, to provide cycling and walking trails and links to green space, but while also providing new accommodation options for this town. And I think this motion provides the possibility for a legacy that we can leave for future generations. And I'm pleased to support this motion.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Councillor Halliday, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I just firstly wanted to note the amazing amount of feedback, suggestions, and that's come in from the community. It has been a lot for us to go through, but it has been incredibly helpful understand the significance of some of the areas of the site, but also some of the things like us and stuff, we didn't have that information and thing before community members helped us with that information. So I just firstly wanted to say thank you. I secondly wanted to talk about the development in a positive light. Similarly to what I said previously, I think it's been a great collaboration. There has been a lot of compromise with the developer. We have pushed back and asked for this and pushed back and asked for that. And I think what we've got here is a much better outcome than what was originally proposed. And I feel comfortable that this is the best outcome for this site. Unfortunately, this does still involve removal of one cedar tree, but there does need to be an access to this site, whether it was, one house on a lot or a multi-lot development, to divert all the traffic out to Smith Street just wouldn't be a good outcome for the community. So I think we do have the best outcome here. And I look forward to seeing all of the things that are going to have to come through and require more approval, such as, you know, detailed landscape plans, the design for the private open space with walking paths and hopefully street furniture and all those sort of bits and pieces. So I think it will be a positive, and that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Dryly.
Yes, I too would like to reiterate councillor Gray's and councillor Halliday's comments and sentiments around this particular part of the project. Again, it's, you know, there's been compromises on both sides. No one's winning outright. There's been incredible contributions from community and just the passion and the valuing of the natural environment and our living systems. Our community is so significant and quite heartening in terms of this being a really great place to live, and that we don't always focus on the past, and we can't just live in the past. That when we are looking to the future, we do have to make some tough decisions that doesn't always suit everyone. And I think that, you know, the compromises that have been made, and particularly some of the wins we've had around the trees, that, you know, from the point of view of something in itself to appreciate for its beauty and its natural asset versus its utility, where it actually has to be useful within a living system, and we have to appreciate it as a resource or part of a greater whole. I think there's complexities have been considered in this that I think have been a really great, as Councillor Halliday's alluded to, coming together of a lot of different inputs that to get us to this point. It's not perfect, but it's certainly a great example of a working relationship with community and other entities.
Thank you, councillor Dryly. Any other? Councillor Henderson.
Yes, Mayor. Well, I echo some of my colleagues' things that they've raised, and part of that is the passion of the community to go out and fight for what they think is right. And I think there's no disagreement about the need to protect our environment, protect our trees. The sad thing is that it's my understanding from the cultural heritage point of view, and it's where I think there's a weakness, is that these things don't apply to private land, privately held land. Once the public open space is declared, that might be a bit of a difference. We'll be able to talk to the JARA on different terms about that. However, that's not the bulk of the development. It does point out to me the inadequacy of what we do to protect our heritage. And I heard very well from Mr. Lawrence earlier about the need to protect our environment. We do have a significant tree register in the Hepburn Shire, and quite frankly, you could shoot holes through it. Some of the very significant trees that are around our shire, we seem to think they're protected by a simple heritage overlay. Well, they're not. They need to be on a significant tree register. They need to be scoped and to be properly assessed as to their value and their provenance. And I think that this planning application points that out very succinctly, that we might say it's going to cost money to do the assessments on these trees, but how much money is a tree worth? How much money is our cultural heritage worth? How much is a tree worth? That is a tree in an avenue of honour to pay respect to a person who lost their life and through no fault of their own probably been sent away. I'm not sure if there are any volunteers, but nevertheless, we need to be very mindful of those sorts of heritage. And it's not just the tree as a beautiful tree. These trees have some provenance, and I think that's what we need to protect. And so you can rest assured that I will raise this, as I have done for many years on this council, the need to put some time and effort and some money, if necessary, into protecting these trees. I'm not so sure about my colleague's comment that they might live for another couple of 100 years. The report says that they might live for another 20 at least. But I've seen some of the condition of the photos of those trees. Some of them are crowned out, and trees are like human beings. They do have a lifetime, and they sometimes expire. But look, I will support this motion. I have some concerns, and I also have some concerns about the heritage of our mine shafts. We're considering World Heritage listing of our goldfields. That's not just the big items. This is some of the smaller existing mine workings and so on that's in our shire. And I have had some significant discussions with people about the value of Dalesford. And I know I did refer the people who were doing the studies to the very person, Mr. Lawrence, who addressed us tonight, to give an idea of what exists here. So I think we are very lucky that we have people in our shire of the commitment and knowledge of Mr. Lawrence and his colleagues down at the museum. So look, I'm going to support this, but you know, I do send a word of warning. We need to do more protection of our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Any other councillors wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Hewitt.
Yes, well, thank you. I do feel that the amendments that have been made are likely to give us a better outcome in terms of protecting these very important trees, both the manna gum and the cedar range. But like Councillor Henderson, I am concerned that we do have a significant tree register, which people think will protect the trees. In fact, all it means is that the trees that are on it need a permit to be lopped or pulled down. So it's not a lot of protection. Mr. Sellen, you mentioned in your preamble that the provisions in our planning scheme do not protect and are not effective in protecting our non-native trees. There's a lot of coverage about native vegetation. There's not much about our European or non-Indigenous trees. And that is something that we've heard from people, Ms. Semple today and others, about the significance and the importance and the meaning of those trees in their life in Dalesford. So I do think that this is an outcome that is the best we can do under the circumstances. But like Councillor Henderson, I would say that it's a message to all of us to do more to actually protect the environment that we've got. You had, as I quoted in my report, Donald MacLeod saying that a tree is one of the closest symbols of immortality that humans can have. I'm fond of, you know that I have a number of large trees myself. I'm fond of quoting that allegedly Greek proverb that a society grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they shall never sit. Now, in this case, it wasn't an old man, it was Florence Stainbridge who planted the cedar trees. So it shows that women too can do these things, and I'd just like to make that point. But at this stage, I'm going to support the application, but it really is a wake-up call and a call out to all of us in the community to actually take some action, do something about it, understand what we've got, and take part in the structure planning, take part in lobbying us to increase our heritage, our tree register. We're not, and to have it, and at least to give it some take. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Is any other councillor wish? Councillor Simpson.
I'd just like to say that I support most of Councillor Gray's motion. The removal of one cedar tree will weaken the line of trees, especially the trees next to it. It will also detract from the views along the Midland Highway, the Trentham Road, and from the Dalesford Botanical Gardens. By passing this motion, this one cedar tree will be removed.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. Councillor Bray, do you wish to exercise your right of reply?
Thank you. I think we've heard a lot of passionate support of this motion and you know, and the need to protect our native and cultural heritage and our European trees and all of the things that make this block and so special and iconic. And I do respect your comments, councillor, about the fact that this motion could lead to one cedar tree being removed. It is in fact perhaps that you might have a connection with. It is never a happy thing to cut down a large tree such as this. The need for that in this motion is to make it for it to be able to be, for an access road to be built. It is possible that that tree may not be needed to be removed. This motion does allow for that possibility. Yeah, thanks for that, Julian.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Councillors, we have a motion before us. It was up on the screen a little while ago. It's a variation on the officer's recommendation with some modifications that have been made by councillor Bray and seconded by councillor Halliday. Can we put that back up on this? Yeah, thanks, Rebecca.
Through you, Mayor, motion is passed. That'll be available on our website Thursday as part of the minutes, so that there's a fair bit of detail in it. So it'll be available on Thursday as part of the minutes.
Councillors, we have the motion before us. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That's councillor Dryly, councillor Halliday, councillor Bray, councillor Henderson, councillor Hewitt and councillor Hood. All those against, it's councillor Simpson. I declare the motion passed. Agenda item 10.3 is PA 3530, 9 Raglan Street, Dalesford, multi-lot subdivision, removal of vegetation, partial demolition of buildings in a heritage overlay, creation and alteration of access to a road in a transport zone 2 and associated works. Ellen, I believe you'll introduce this report. Thank you.
Through the chair. The proposed development is for a 20-lot residential subdivision, removal of vegetation, partial demolition of buildings in a heritage overlay, creation and alteration of access to a road in a transport zone and associated works. The application proposes to subdivide the land into 20 lots in areas from 69 square metres to 1,235 square metres. Lots will have access to a 16-metre wide, will be located largely in the centre of the site in a north-south alignment. The proposed subdivision will provide a connection to the north at 17 Smith Street and a road connection east for the future residential development at 4719 Midland Highway, which we've just considered. Planning approval is also sought to demolish a small outbuilding related to the dwelling to be retained on site, which is within the heritage overlay. 4 lots at the southern end of the site are proposed in a battle axe design, which negates the sides of future dwellings fronting Raglan Street, which is a desirable outcome. Some of the key issues include the removal of 1 tree in the Avenue of Honour, mine shafts potentially located within the property and public open space. 10 objections were received for this application and the recommendation is for a notice of decision to grant a planning permit to be issued in accordance with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. Councillors, are there any questions? Simpson.
Just about the mine shaft on the on Raglan Street in the south east corner of this block. There's a block of land, a battle axe block, which this mine shaft is on. Is that mine shaft documented on that block of land?
Through the chair, we're certainly aware of it. As with all of the documentation, some of it varies in location, and I couldn't positively say that it is shown on that one, but we've certainly taken note of it.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Simpson.
Yes. Mr. Sallin, what alternatives are available to cutting down the Honour Avenue tree?
Through the chair, not cutting down the tree and relying on access to and from the site by the other two access points. That is a matter that council needs to determine as part of their considerations tonight.
Okay.
Thomas.
Through you, Mayor, I might also, probably the other option that could be considered by councillors is, obviously, we've been through the process. It is a Department of Transport roads. We must refer it off to them for referral. And it's really the Department of Transport that has asked for the tree to be removed to allow enough spacing for the entry and exit. What councillors could be of a mind to do through conditions is approve the permit and not allow the tree removal. That'll put responsibly back on the developer to work with particularly Department of Transport, but also council to really see if there is any other options. Obviously, that comes with the risk of those negotiations being protracted, prolonged, and not getting an outcome, to which then the developer would have to make decisions around potentially coming back and looking at other items. But it would allow council to make a decision for the approval of the permit tonight and give the developer the ability to work with DOT, put some pressure on, can they get an entry and exit to that site within the constraint of not being able to remove the tree.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Councillor Henderson.
Yes, just on that question, Mayor, about us doing something, and I know that when things get referred up to statutory authorities, we're told that we have no right to go against that statutory authority, and if anyone wants to go against that, the only option is to go to VCAT. So if that's a condition that the transport authorities put on, do we have the power to take that off? And are we in fact not taking note in our planning considerations of what statutory authorities say? Because we're often told if the CFA refuse it or the Department of Transport refuse or any referral authority, then we don't have the power to make a decision. So do we have the power to do something and go against the authority? I'm quite happy to do it, but I'm just wondering about the legality of it, that's all.
Through the chair, if they're determining or referral authorities, then we impose what conditions they apply, particularly when it relates to land that is their land or under their care and control. So we don't go against those. That would be, I'm not aware of councils actually doing that and ever being successful at VCAT.
Councillors, are there any further questions? Councillor Bray.
Thank you. Councillor Good, through you. Question around the heritage house that's on the site. What protections does this application propose to make sure that that is being considered? And is there an element that is still required to be demolished? Would that be clarified, please?
Through the chair, there is still an outbuilding that is required to be demolished. However, there is some work that is being undertaken to document that so that we will maintain the records of that particular aspect of that outbuilding. The protections that are being put into place is essentially a curtilage around the building and wider buffer zones to make sure that the development around it doesn't impinge on the heritage buildings.
Thank you, Mr. Sallin. Councillors, are there any further questions? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is that council, having complied with the relevant sections of the Planning and Environment Act 1987, issues a notice of decision to grant a permit in respect of application number PA 3530 for a multi-lot subdivision, removal of vegetation, including a tree within the heritage overlay, partial demolition of a building within the heritage overlay, creation and alteration of access to a road in a transport zone 2, and associated works generally in accordance with the endorsed plans 9 Raglan Street, Dalesford, subject to the conditions as outlined in the meeting agenda. And there are some 98 conditions listed. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Henderson, you are moving
Moving the officer's recommendation, Mayor.
the officer's recommendation. I'm in search of a seconder. The motion lapses through want of a seconder. Councillors, I'm obliged to seek another motion.
I will move another motion,
Thank you, councillor Hewitt.
which I understand, Ms Smith, you might have. There are a number of changes. The main changes are in blue. Just run through them. That one, prior to the certification of the plan of subdivision, amended plans must be submitted. And going down, entitled preliminary subdivision layout plan, modified to include the following to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. Provide for the pedestrian access between Raglan Street and the internal subdivision must be provided. The access must be of an appropriate width and include suitable sight lines to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. Retention of all Avenue of Honour trees adjacent to Raglan Street must address Raglan Street. What was E becomes G, to demonstrate the plans are generally in accordance with the Middleton Field Concept Master Plan. And H, any changes recommended by the updated traffic impact assessment report required by condition 2. 2, prior to the certification of the plan of subdivision and updated traffic impact assessment report that addresses the whole of Middleton Field, including 17 Smith Street, 29 Smith Street, 9 Raglan Street, and 4719 Midland Highway be submitted and approved to the satisfaction of the responsible authority. 5, before the plan of subdivision is certified for any stage of the subdivision under Subdivision Act 1988, housing design guidelines must be submitted to and approved by the responsible authority. Once approved, the housing design guidelines must be secured through an agreement made under Section 173 of the Planning and Environment Act. Sustainable housing. Councillors, do you want me to read all of these changes out? I believe you have a copy of them.
4B,
Pardon?
4B, Albie Avenue.
4B, hang on, I'll just get. That also provide for number 6, the landscape plan that shows how the Avenue of Honour will be protected during construction plans. Councillors, I'm moving this change to the officer's recommendation because I do see it as a priority. Oh, yes.
No, so it's a modification of the officer's
Officer's
recommendation,
recommendation,
the
yeah.
significant aspect of which is the retention of all Avenue of Honour trees.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Halliday, thank you. Councillor Hewitt, you wish to speak to the motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. My main reason for moving the change to the officer's recommendation is that I see it's really important to protect the Avenue of Honour trees. And I understand and maintain the integrity of the Avenue of Honour. Removal of the tree, obviously trees age, die and are replaced, but removing a tree prevents the replacement of that site. And the Avenue of Honour was formed in 1918. There were over 126 trees planted in that avenue. It was out along the road to Trentham, along the Midland Highway and to Camorra. And the aim of the Avenue of Honour was to recognise everyone from the district who went and fought in the First World War. There's evidence from the Dalesford Historical Society and the RSL and the Dalesford Primary School honour roll that the particular tree that was originally that Vic Rhodes wanted removed was in honour of a Thomas Alfred chaplain who was born in Glenlyon, fought at Gallipoli, died at sea and was buried at sea, but there's a memorial tomb at the Lone Pine Memorial in Turkey. It almost doesn't matter whose tree that one was, because the tree commemorates a number of people. Yes, the Avenue of Honour trees do require work, do require attention. Many of them are not in good health, but it's my view that we have an obligation to protect both the heritage and the trees. My discussions with the RSL indicate that for them, it's a highly significant avenue, but not only that, it's highly significant for all of us. I understand that the developers did not want to remove that tree, that was not their intention, and I commend them for that, but that was something that the Department of Transport requested. By moving this motion saying we're not going to approve the Avenue of Honour tree, I hope that it brings back, allows for an alternative consideration for entries and exits through Smith Street and the Midland Highway. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hewitt. Councillor Halliday, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd basically say everything that Leslie has said, but additionally, I think it's really brought to the fore how, I guess we were saying it with the previous item, how we need to be more mindful of protecting our heritage. And I think particularly in this case, as Councillor Hewitt said, trees can die, be replaced, but the integrity of the Avenue of Honour is important, and it's important that we retain each of the avenue sites. So whether a tree dies and we replace it, as long as it's retaining that site, the Avenue of Honour will continue for perpetuity for generations and generations. So I think it's really important that we're protecting that, and I hope that this will serve as a precedent and hopefully be looked at as part of our planning scheme review, and that in future it'll just be automatic that no trees in the avenue or sites can be built over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Henderson.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, I'm quite happy to support this motion, even if I think I'm going to get into trouble. I think what Councillor Hewitt said is correct, that we need to protect the Avenue of Honour trees. And one might say, well, what's a tree worth, as I've said before? And Well, I can understand now that into the future, when officers tell me that the referral authority has denied something, I know I can question that. I know I can go and say, well, it doesn't matter what Golden Murray Water say. I don't want this particular thing to happen, and so I'll be able to question that. I think it's fraught with a bit of danger, but I'm quite happy to retain the tree. If it falls over or taken to VCAP, or I just wonder what happens if we've given it a permit subject to that not having that access there or not being able to be found there, but in fact refusing the permit. I'm happy to give it a permit with that condition, but if it falls over and it's found to be wrong, well, it's all on us. I'll be part of the decision and I'll be a soldier, pardon the pun. So there we have it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillor Bray.
Thank you. Good through you. I support the motion. I do support retaining of the tree in the Avenue of Honour, and I acknowledge that the developers did seek solution to find a way around it in their planning, but Vic Roads have insisted at this stage, at least, that that tree should have been removed, and we've put in conditions here that will mean that that tree can't be removed. That's going to mean there'll be a challenge now for the developers to solve that access issue, perhaps through working with Vic Roads. I do have concerns about the traffic flow through this precinct from Smith Street through Raglan Street to the Midland Highway. There's a lot of new dwellings. There'll be a lot of car movement. And we already know that Smith Street traffic is intense at school pickup times already, with parents and buses all trying to get down that one very narrow street. So I wish them luck with this traffic management issue. And hopefully there can be a resolution through Raglan Street, perhaps. But I also want to point to the other positive aspects about this application. The developer again has listened to the community and heard the concerns around the heritage building that was on the site. They have also addressed issues around the water drainage line on the adjoining site. And there's been a change to the original plan to curve the road around so that it goes around the heritage site of the old farmhouse, and also follows the contour lines of the drainage creek that goes into Bun Creek. And I think this is a really good outcome, and it shows that there's opportunities to create a green wedge of public open space, provide more access for people to connect and to be outdoors. So there's some real positives have come out of the changes made in this design. And as I said, hopefully we can find a good traffic management solution here.
Thank you, councillor Bray. Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? That being the case, I will put the motion to the vote. We've had it up on the screen, moved by councillor Hewitt with some amendments to the officer's recommendation. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. That's councillor Drylee. I declare that that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Agenda item 11.1, Solar Savers 22-23. The intention to declare a special rates charge. I'll ask councillor Drylee to introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just give me a moment. So in this item, council is making solar power more accessible to low-income households through the Solar Savers program. And the program was first delivered in Hepburn in 2018. And in 22-23 it's the fifth round offered to eligible residents. And Solar Savers enables households to install solar photovoltaic PV systems and to pay them off through a special rates charge over 8 years. So this report recommends council initiate the declaration of a special charge scheme under section 163 of the Local Government Act for the purposes of defraying expenses relating to the provision of solar energy systems on residential properties participating in the Solar Savers scheme. It's noted that the provisions for declaring a special charge scheme were not updated in the Local Government Act of 2020. So council's allocated $100,000 in 2023 budget to deliver the program. The total cost of the works is calculated at $86,672.48 GST exclusive, which property owners will contribute the entirety over an 8-year period. Total cost of the program, including the project management fee, is $98,672.48 excluding GST. And I'll let you read the recommendation, Matt.
Thank you, councillor Dryly. Councillors, are there any questions? That being the case, the recommendation before us is in two parts. One is that council agrees to proceed with the list of applicants to the Solar Savers program. And two, gives notice of its intention to declare a special charge to the affected properties in accordance with section 163 of the Local Government Act 1989 for implementation of the Solar Savers program. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Mover, councillor Halliday, seconded councillor Dryly. Thank you. Councillor Halliday, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Dryly.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that I think the programs that point out the inequities in some of our delivery of energy systems, our programs, and elevates some of the disadvantage to programs like Solar Savers is actually really great. And I think that the Hepburn Shire supports such a program is significant in its acknowledgement of the desire to be equitable and that people should be treated equally and have access to energy in a time, particularly when we're facing a great escalation of costs in this space.
Thank you, councillor Dryly. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? That being the case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And I declare that motion is carried unanimously. Agenda item 12.1 is the Chief Executive's annual report to Council on the activities and performance of our new community asset committees. Councillor Halliday, I believe you'll introduce this report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the reason for this report is to provide an update on the challenges and achievements of our asset committees. In the agenda, we're able to read the financial situation of the committees, challenges, events that they've been holding. And it's a good way to keep up to date with how they're going, and I guess get an idea of whether the asset committee model's working and whether any of them need extra support. So it's basically we're just accepting the report. We're not making a decision to or voting on any particular outcome. As in the officer's recommendation, we're thanking all the committee members for their hard work throughout the year. And I think that's really important. They're all volunteers, and they're without them managing the assets, it would be a much bigger drain on our budget. So it is really beneficial to the Shire that they help us in this way. So thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Hewitt.
Mr. Thomas, could you, or Smith, could you let us know what level of support council offered to the community managed asset committees in terms of their undertaking their governance roles, and their, do do we offer any support to them in providing professional development in terms of their roles?
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair. So when the committees moved to the new structure with the new Act in 2020, we did a number of sessions with the committees to understand the new obligations and what had changed from their old instruments of delegation and their new requirements. Because they do file their minutes with us regularly, we review those, track them. We're sort of constantly providing feedback to those committees on any issues that we see and anything that they need to be working on. But they're certainly always welcome to approach us if there's a specific area that they need some support and development in. The key one is usually needing a treasurer. It's not a role that a lot of people like to step up to and participate in. So we're certainly happy to provide that development opportunity if they would like it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Councillors, are there any further questions? That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is in two parts, that Council 1 receives and notes the report on the operations of Council's community asset committees as required in line with obligations set out in the Local Government Act 2020. And secondly, Council thanks committee members for their contribution throughout the year. I'm in search of a motion, councillors. Councillor Hewitt and a seconder, Councillor Henderson. You're moving the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Yes, I'd just like to note, as Councillor Halliday said, the work of our Community Assets Committee. Their full reports are in the agenda. They certainly do achieve a lot and work very effectively on behalf of their communities in managing those community assets. Some of them are very well supported by members of their local community, and others I'm sure would wish that more people would step up to the mark. So I'd just like to, in supporting this motion, publicly acknowledge our thanks and the community's thanks for the work they do, and encourage you all to support this.
Councillor Hewitt, Councillor Henderson. Any other councillor wish to speak on this motion? That being the case, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. And that motion is carried unanimously. Item 13.1. Central Highlands Tourism Visitor Economy Partnership, a new entity. Deputy Mayor Hewitt will introduce this report.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, just for your information, in 2021, there were 738 jobs in the Hepburn Shire, which relied on the visitor economy, with an output of 122 million, making it the largest industry when all the associated industries are aggregated together. Ensuring that the sector is supported by growing its brand and investing in industry development is going to be vital for a sustainable and robust visitor economy in Hepburn Shire. This agenda item hasn't come out of the blue. Over the last 8 months, an extensive consultation process has taken place in the form of a working group that was involved the local government areas of Ballarat, Moorabool, Pyrenees, Hepburn and Golden Plains, Ballarat Regional Tourism, Regional Development Victoria, and the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industries and Regions. And councillors, we were briefed on this in November last year. In February 2023, the City of Ballarat councillors formally endorsed the formation of a new visitor economy partnership. Pyrenees, Golden Plains and Moorabool Shire Council have already endorsed, agreed to be part of this partnership. The establishment of this entity is estimated to commence following ratification by the 5 participating local government areas and the endorsement of the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industries and Regions, with a view to be fully functioning by the 1st of July 2023. We already receive excellent value for money as member of Daylesford Macedon Tourism, which has been key to the rebound of the sector over the past 12 to 18 months. The opportunity to join a new visitor economy partnership, as well as continuing to be part of DMT, provides additional marketing, advocacy and industry development opportunities, particularly in the western part of the Shire, who may feel that with a group as Daylesford Macedon, that perhaps the focus has not been on the west of the Shire. The purpose of this report is for us to consider support for Hepburn Shire Council to join this new visitor economy partnership for Ballarat and the surrounding regions, which will include Ballarat, Pyrenees, Mirrabul and Golden Plains. It'll cost us $15,000 ex-GST annual membership fee, and it's also proposed that each joining council provide $5,000 to allocate to participate in marketing and industry development activities. Officers will continue to notify members of the Central Highlands Tourism Work Group and DMT of progress.
Thank you, councillor Hewitt. Councillors, are there any questions on this matter? No. That being the case, the officer's recommendation before us is in two parts. One, that council endorses the new visitor economy partnership at a membership cost of $15 per annum. And secondly, that we include $20,000 ex-GST in council's 2023-2024 budget, comprising the $15,000 membership fee and the $5,000 marketing industry development contribution. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Henderson, seconded Councillor Halliday. Councillor Henderson, you wish to speak?
Yes, I'm moving the officer's recommendation, Mayor. Well, this is perhaps an opportunity for me to take up what my colleague said about some people might have been a bit disappointed in the Macedon Ranges tourism. Well, not necessarily so, but here's an opportunity for us to work with, as the whole Shire, with a big city like Ballarat and our neighbours to the west. And so it's an opportunity for us to have two fingers in a pie, if you like. I know that those shires have been very supportive. Years ago, when we were talking about bike trails, we were talking about all manner of things to go on in our shire, particularly the west of the shire. Those councils were very supportive of us. They were very supportive, and in fact, helped us get over the line, and were great advocates for the Commonwealth Games, which is, call it what you like, it could be sport, could be tourism opportunity. So I think that this is a small investment to add to what we do, and I remind us that we put $80,000 into Daylesford Macedon Ranges tourism, and a lot of that because of the nature of what they do and the membership and the businesses that are associated. There's some thought that they get more service east of the Shire than we do in the west. Well, yeah, well, people can argue that, but I've seen a bit of a renewed vigour by Daylesford Macedon Ranges tourism in the west. So I don't see it as a criticism of them. I just see this as another opportunity to give us another door to go through. I do also note that some years ago that the Ballarat Tourism gave $10,000 from memory to help Clunes Booktown get going. And that was a pretty big investment for them in our shire. So I commend this to you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Councillor Halliday, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please. I would also like to support this motion and this project. I believe it will be of great benefit to our shire to be partnering with Ballarat and Pyrenees, give us a lot more exposure to tourism opportunities. I do think that we have in the past suffered a little bit as far as not getting as much exposure. That has improved, but I still do find that the big tourist hub of Daylesford and the businesses here have a lot more clout. And so when they do look to highlight 5 businesses, for example, in a TV promotion, quite often the little tourism businesses in Clunes and sometimes Creswick do get overlooked. They're not big enough. They don't tick all the boxes that they're looking for. Hopefully, having this opportunity will give us more chance for exposure. And I think it's good for good value. $20,000 is not a lot to be part of this partnership. The majority of funds, we're talking millions, is coming from City of Ballarat. So I think this is very good value, and I think it'll be great for our Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Halliday. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Simpson.
Against, is that right? Against the motion.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Okay. So recently I attended an audit risk meeting. It was documented that the Hepburn Shire Council is in a severe financial position. We have a very tight $30 million budget, which we will commence work on next week. Why should this have a priority allocation of $20,000 over and above something else in the budget? I would like to see this in the context of the whole budget and not pre-approve it now.
Thank you, councillor Simpson. Councillor Dryling.
Yes, speaking in support of the motion. And look, I acknowledge councillor Simpson's point about our finances, and it's certainly a consideration. But as councillor Hewitt pointed out, there's $122 million in the tourism in Hepburn Shire, and being the largest industry overall, I think it is significant that we look to natural partnerships in our affiliates and our neighbours, and particularly our big neighbours in Ballarat, and just the benefits that can flow from those partnerships. Being a small rural shire, we really have to consider our place in the broader scheme of our neighbours and our position. So it's, I think this is a really great opportunity for us, particularly in Creswick, Clunes, in the west of the Shire, where, this offers a diverse contact with other, a more natural fit for us in that area. And we just have to think of all the other opportunities that come along with these partnerships in terms of the arts and visitation, in terms of the spend locally that come every week, and the potential growth in that, and the resilience that comes from that is in our local communities. I think that's a really important aspect to support our local people. So it's, yes, I certainly support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Dryling. Does any other councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? That being the case, the motion before us is that Council 1 endorses the new visitor economy partnership at a membership cost of $15,000 per annum, and secondly includes $20,000, comprising $15,000 membership fee and $5,000 for marketing industry development in Council's 23-24 budget. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please indicate. It's councillor Dryling, councillor Halliday, councillor Bray, councillor Henderson, councillor Hewitt, councillor Hood. All those against, councillor Simpson. Agenda item 14.1, the approval of interstate travel to attend the National General Assembly of Local Government 2023. To introduce the report is councillor Henderson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Conflict.
Councillor, sorry, I didn't hear. Councillor Henderson.
Yes, Mayor, this report before us, the purpose of this report is for council to consider the approval of travel arrangements for the Mayor, Councillor Brian Hood, and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Bradley Thomas, to attend the National General Assembly of Local Government 2023 and the 2023 Australian Council of Local Government. Purpose of the National General Assembly is to build a profile of local government on the national stage and to demonstrate to the Australian government the strength and value of working with local government nationally. 2023 conference will be held on Friday, 16th of June, 2023 in Canberra. Following the Australian Local Government Association's National General Assembly of Local Government from the 13th to the 15th of June, the annual forum will put leaders of local government and the Commonwealth in one room, allowing the ministers to directly hear about the issues impacting local government sector. And just to add to that, we've always got the opportunity to speak to our federal member, Catherine King, who's the Minister for Infrastructure as well. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Henderson. Councillors, are there any questions on this item? Councillor Hewitt.
Councillor, Mr. Thomas, I'm just wondering, don't have a problem with this, but is there usual practice to just approve the expenditure without a cap?
Oh,
Should we be,
yes, through you, Mayor, usually it's to provide an estimate.
yeah,
And then part of the recommendation is that a report's provided by the Mayor and the Chief Executive Officer on the outcomes of the event, and you would follow up as part of that, the financial impact.
so I'm not understanding. Would you expect to give us an estimate at this stage?
$8,000 in the report, I believe.
Oh, okay, it's not what I've got here.
So financial per page 128 of.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillors, are there any further questions? The councillors, the officer's recommendation is in two parts. One, that it approves the interstate travel for the Mayor and Chief Executive to attend the National General Assembly of Local Government 23 and the 2023 Australian Council of Local Government. And secondly, notes that the Mayor and Chief Executive Officer will prepare a report regarding the conference for a future ordinary meeting of council upon their return. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Hewitt, seconded Councillor Henderson. Councillor Hewitt, you wish to speak?
No, just to say I'm happy to move the motion. I look forward to your report.
Councillor Henderson?
No requirement.
Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Dryling?
Through you, Mayor, just from the perspective of a previous mayor who attended this event, I would highly recommend that the exposure that this gives us to the national stage and to consider the effects and the impacts that councils experience across the nation is actually really important for us to engage in. And I think in future, we should consider that other councillors might be able to attend this sort of event where our budgets allow. But I certainly recommend both of you attending this important event.
Thank you, councillor Dryling. Does any other councillor wish to speak? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour, please indicate. I declare that that motion's passed unanimously. (15.1) Closure of the meeting to members of the public. Councillors, we have a recommendation before us. The recommendation is that in accordance with sections 66(1) and 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020, this meeting be closed to members of the public for the consideration of the following confidential item. And that item is the Clunes Caravan Park new lease proposal. That agenda item is confidential information for the purposes of section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020, as it is council business information, being information that would prejudice council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released. And secondly, it is private commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that relates to trade secrets or, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage. Councillors, I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Simpson, thank you.
Recommendation.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Bray. Thank you. Do either of you wish to speak to that motion? Councillors, we have a motion to close the meeting to the public. All those in favour, please indicate. Declare that that motion is passed unanimously. We will now cease the broadcast and thank members of the public for joining the meeting today, whether it be in person or online.